Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I've been enjoying reading all of your comments recently, and I hope that you're getting to meet other people who are going through the Ketu Mahadasha on my channel, because everyone is sharing their experiences, and it's really nice to see that there are a lot more people who are going through what you're going through, and also being able to connect with others to see what their experiences are like. So today I thought I would make a video about sort of my journey to finding God during Ketu Mahadasha. And I wonder if a lot of you also went through similar things in terms of, your level of spirituality, your level of believing in God, and also doing devotional practices. How much has that changed because of your Ketu Mahadasha? Please leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear it, and I'm sure everyone else would too. I guess where do I begin? I think I'd have to say that before my Ketu Mahadasha, I definitely, had a feeling that there is a God. However, I never really spent too much time looking into the matter or trying to learn anything about God. I kind of just believed that God was within me, and in everything that I do, I try to remember that following the right principles and thinking about doing good deeds is always a good thing. So for me, God was never somebody that I fear. It's more like there's a God inside me, and in order for me to maintain that, I have to do good things and I have to be good to other people. So I think my relationship to God was very much as like taking it for granted, as not something that I spent a lot of time of my day really trying to understand better, or even doing any devotional practices around. So at the height of my Mercury Mahadasha, I think I tended to think that I was the doer of everything in my life, and that all the things I had achieved were due to my hard work and due to the hard work of the people around me, like my parents. I think there's probably two types of people who are watching these videos and are going through a Ketu Mahadasha. They either were atheists before they started their Ketu Mahadasha, or they didn't spend too much time thinking about God before they started the Mahadasha. And I think that one of the things that this Dasha does for you is it almost makes sure that you discover God, not just within you, but within others and in the world in general. I'd like to talk about, the 4 steps I think that I went through during the Ketu Mahadasha that kind of changed and transformed my relationship with God. So I would say that when I was growing up, my mom was very religious, and well, actually, I wouldn't say very religious, that she did a lot of pilgrimages or something like that. I would just say that she always prayed every day, and she had a beautiful mandir in our house. And I think I just felt the presence of God without really doing any of the things myself. I never used to pray. I never really even know all of the names of the gods in the Hindu pantheon. And I'd say that even when sometimes I'd be at prayers and mandirs, I didn't really quite feel the urge to go and sit and pray and really cultivate a relationship with God. I might sometimes be so logical that I would often think, like, why do I need to do these things to connect with God? I didn't quite understand those things. And I think during the Ketu Mahadasha, a lot of those things have changed. So I'm going to talk to you about 4 parts of this experience for me. The first one is acknowledging God. The second part of it is approaching God and understanding that the world is God's creation, and being able to identify and see it that way. The third part of this experience was starting to propitiate. I hope I'm saying that right, but it's essentially trying to win the favor, or to praise God in a way that pleases God, in order to establish a strong connection. And the last part is loving God. So how the love of God is felt, and how it stays with you, and how it grows within you, is the last part. So let's start with the first one, acknowledging God. I think one of the first parts of this entire experience is that Ketu Mahadasha tends to give you experiences where you can feel like things are a little bit out of your control. So I personally am a Virgo ascendant, and I tend to, try to be in control of every little thing in my life to make sure that it goes well, plan everything out, try to put in my 100% or maybe even more to ensure everything is well thought out and everything is on track. So for somebody like me, I have Ketu in the first house. It's really nerve-wracking to know that somebody other than myself is in fact in charge of my life, or in charge of everything. And not knowing or being aware of that was essentially the first obstacle. So knowing that God is actually the controller of everything and not so much myself was one of the first things that I started to get used to. So I started to realize that there are hidden variables that control a lot of things. Like, I may feel as though it is me who's doing one thing or the other, but really there are so many other things that are also in tandem happening, which are out of my control. So I think that was one of the first things. The second part is attributing that control, or returning that control back to God. So knowing that God exists is different than just thinking about God or trying to intellectualize God. The first few years I must have spent looking at, what God, how do humans understand God, and sort of all of the logical arguments about God, whether he exists or she exists, and in what form, and all of those things. What is the word of God, and all of those things. So I think my journey started out very skeptical, but it started to quickly turn into developing faith that there is God. So knowing that God exists. And then once I had that feeling sinking into me, where I felt like, yes, I think there is God. And again, as a true Virgo, I tend to use more of my mental faculties. So I'm saying I think there is God, but I think knowing that there is God is a new level of acknowledgement. So I started to seek out ways in which God exists in my life. So I tried to look at the world around me, to look at the lives of others, to look at the grace of God in the lives of my parents or my friends, to think about all of these things and start to notice God in the little things. The second part of this is approaching God and its creation and starting to really get to know God a little bit more. They say that the more you look at images of God, the more you hear the stories of God, or you hear songs, devotional songs, the more you can start to understand God, not intellectually, but with your heart. So I started to do that. And I started to learn the names and the versions of God. So, my mom has so many little idols and what we call chubbies, which are like little frames of images of God. I started to acquaint myself more and more with all the different images and their names and what they stand for, and trying to understand the symbology behind all the images. And even now, I am not familiar with so many of them, but I feel like there are a few that really stand out to me. And I just sort of pick up on those cues. So when I sit in front of the mandir, I look at the images and I see which idol really speaks to me, which one am I drawn to. So starting to acquaint myself with God was something that I started to do at this stage. Of course, there were many times where, I felt like just sitting in front of a mandir made me feel better. If I was going through something very, very difficult, I could be maybe weeping or crying in my room about it. But if I just could not take that emotion anymore, I would go and sit in front of the mandir, and within seconds or even a minute, I would start to feel better. And I felt like that was the essence or the energy of that mandir in my home, because my mom took so much care of it and made sure she was always praying there. So I think this second stage is all about feeling the essence of God and noticing God in the little things. And the third phase of this opening up to God was starting to establish my connection. So starting to sing the praises of God through songs, through mantras, and just really starting to focus, you know. So when you sit in front of an idol of God, you know, do you feel anything? Do you sense anything? When your mind is down and you go and sit at a mandir, do you start to feel it getting uplifted by doing nothing at all, just by sitting there? And sometimes, even when your mind is going through a lot of negative chatter, if you can go and sit at a mandir, do you start to see that chatter clear and a more uplifting and positive voice starting to come through in your mind? If those things are not happening, that means there's no connection yet to God. There might be a connection, but maybe you're just not very aware of it. So by singing mantras, I started to develop my connection. The mantras are thought to be as powerful sounds that help you focus on the vibration of God. So it makes your body aware, you know, makes your mind and heart aware of that vibration. It calms down our mind, and when we sing the hymns or the strotams, which are ways to praise the God, we start to basically notice the qualities of God. So these hymns and mantras and everything, they usually sing about the attributes of God. So you start to sort of admire the qualities of God. And by doing that, you are noticing and identifying the beauty of God. So when I started to do the mantras, I started to notice that I felt so much better. Whatever I was going through did not feel as fearful as it did before, didn't fill me with anguish, but it started to calm those fears and feelings of despair. So I think it's essential to start to do mantras and to sing the devotional songs, because when you start to appreciate the beauty of God, you almost start to appreciate who you are, and you start to develop a love for God. So this stage, I think, generally was one of the hardest but the most satisfying. I started to look up different mantras and look up their meanings, and then also started to like translate them in English so that I could sing them, and also learn what they meant and memorize them. So I would try to find songs on Spotify that would repeat the same mantra over and over for like a good 15-20 minutes. And then I would just sit with the lyrics, and I would keep trying to sing them until they felt very easy to recall. And at that point, I was able to then focus on God and not the lyrics. When you start to sing to God, what starts to happen is that it's a two-way connection. So the more you love God, the more you feel the love of God towards you. You start to feel that whatever your obstacles in your life are not as huge as they are appearing to be. You start to feel like you can surmount them. And that two-way connection is so amazing, because as soon as you start to sing those songs or start to notice God in a loving manner, that is like a complete rebound. So you almost feel it right away back to you. So it's almost like the love that you give to God is not selfish. It, you know, he or she returns it right back to you and makes you feel like you are safe, you are going to be okay, and that you have the strength. In fact, it grows your strength, which is something that I never really realized could happen. And I found that when I did this, you know, day to day, my mind became absorbed in beauty and appreciation of God. And temporarily, it felt like all my negative thoughts were getting drained out of me. All my sadness or difficult beliefs about, you know, how will I continue, started to almost vanish, almost disappear. And I can't really explain it very logically. I don't know how that happens, but I know that I started to feel that. And that's why I feel that this is one of the most essential parts of opening yourself up to God. And I think when the Ketu Mahadasha gets very difficult, sometimes you do feel like giving up. But with the support and the company of God, you don't feel like you need to give up. You feel like this is just a process. This is just you're just in the middle of a transformational process that's going to completely change and evolve. So you're never going to be stuck in the same place that you are right now. You should look forward to tomorrow, and you should, have a nice sleep tonight, and, see another sunrise and see another sunset. And that's the beauty of opening up to God at this time. So at this point, I just want to say one quote from the Bhagavad Gita that I found. And I'm not going to try to say it in Hindi because my Hindi is not good. But what I will do is translate it for you. So it says, "Those who seek me with devotion exist in me, and I exist in them." So that brings me to the last step in this process, which was loving God. So feeling the love of God within me, even when I'm not praying. So these little practices that I started to do, whenever I had the chance, or even if I'm not necessarily sitting at the mandir, even if I'm just doing something else, I'll suddenly remember a hymn and just, hum it or start singing a little bit, whichever words I remember. Or if I'm just laying there in bed and I can't sleep, I start to sing, and then all of a sudden sleep comes to me. But essentially, these little practices, I believe they helped expand my heart, because I had gone through a very heartbreaking situation, and it happened back to back with a number of other things. And I really felt scarred by my experiences to the point where I felt like my heart would never open up again. So these practices actually helped me maintain the goodness that is within me, and to also have faith in the goodness of life. So it helped me sort of keep myself open to the good things, which sometimes you can also close off to if you go through something that's truly difficult for you. So I started to notice that through the practices where I was sitting with God and I was doing the mantras, I started to build up a reserve of love. So even if I haven't done the prayers for maybe 2 days, I feel like that love that I received during that experience is now with me and in me throughout the next couple of days. And I didn't necessarily feel like I have to go and sit in front of the mandir all the time. And even when I was lonely sometimes, in terms of like living alone or things like that, I didn't ever feel alone, because I felt like, like I had the company of God with me. And I noticed that around this time, I felt more of a need to sit with God. And the beauty of the Ketu Mahadasha is that is the perfect time for all of this. That is when you notice that there's actually space. There's people who have exited. Maybe there's responsibilities that have been taken away, or there has been, a severe loss of the material world. That it really does sort of take all these obstacles off of your path to God. And now that you don't have all of these distractions, you can actually focus more on that, establishing that connection with God. And it is truly the most profound moment to know God, to believe in God, to love God, and to have faith in the beauty of your own life, and believe that God has a plan. So this is the perfect time to explore the greatest source. I hope that you have a similar experience where you do have a chance to explore your own divinity and to explore your favorite gods. What I'd love for you to do is maybe leave your comments below to tell me about the god that speaks most to you, or the mantra that speaks most to you. In the description box below, I'll put down the mantras that I really love, that I have been learning and also starting to memorize and try to sing at least a few times a week. And hopefully I can keep doing that to make it a regular ritual every day. So really quickly, the ones that I have been really loving so far have been the Ketu mantra, Ganesh Dwadash Nam Strotram, Gayatri mantra, Bhairavi Vandana, Shri Yamuna Ashtakam, Ehi Murari, Hanuman Chalisa, Panchakshari mantra, Karagre Vasate Lakshmi, Ya Devi mantra, and the Maha Mrityunjaya mantra. By the way, if you want the link to my playlist for all these mantras, you can find the link down below. I'm gonna try to see if I can find them on YouTube and put together a list, or at the very least, you will find a Spotify link to my playlist. If you haven't heard them or you haven't looked into them, I hope you will explore them. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't liked this video, please do so. It means a lot to me. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do as well. I'll be making a lot more videos on my Ketu experience, and hopefully a lot more than just Ketu in the near future. Okay, thanks guys. Bye.